Recording. All right. So, question or comments for these few people that join us today?
What or were you looking for when you said like Central American Court of Justice?
Yeah, that was basically one of the first courts ever to which, states would suspend their sovereignty and essentially allow for international law. So that's a great opening. I always say that it's a great opening question, but it is, so that's what that one is about. So in that one, you definitely have to know the purpose. You don't have to say who's in it or, remember all this stuff, but you got to kind of understand that aspect of it. And good question. So, but I want to take a look here, what I got here exactly. Domestic, international. Yeah. And that's one of those things where smaller nations actually contribute and listen to international law as well. But remember, the United States didn't support the ruling. The United States has the tendency to ignore as China, which is the same thing. The goal of that whole 9-dash rule of China when it's out in the South Chinese Sea is that it's pushing itself out forward. And the International Court of Justice actually ruled against China in favor of the Philippines. Pretty interesting, huh? How like they act the same. So that kills two, can we say birds? Anyone here in PETA at one stone? The interesting thing on this exam is the same thing where international law, Sudan tried to use it in its favor against the United Arab Emirates. But the problem was they lost on a technicality because it didn't sign up for the whole genocide thing. That's pretty interesting too, because it really shows you how international law often fails because people don't subscribe to certain, treaties and certain aspects of treaties. But the thing is, the Sudan tried desperately to bring it to the ICJ, that's the International Court of Justice, but it failed. So it's interesting what's going on in Africa now, where it's actually blaming other states, in this case the Sudan, for bringing mercenaries and others to the country. I because I'm not an Africanist, it's interesting on what would be, the United Emirates' interest in the Sudan. But according to them, they do have interest in the Sudan, and they actually brought in Colombian nationals in order to, work on the side to overthrow the government. Quite interesting. Good questions. Remember preemptive strikes? What are preemptive strikes again? Does anyone remember? No, remember?
That's when a country attacks another country before they can attack the first
Right.
country.
And Noah, you going to say something?
Yeah, no, she basically covered it.
Yeah, so that's essentially what that's about. And international lawyers are nervous about these preemptive strikes because remember, one of the aspects of international law is customary practice. And if this becomes a practice, then other states will use it as well. So that's kind of problematic. So right there, you hit a question. So that's a few questions right there. I want to explain one thing quick. I did the Colombian peace process. The goal of that was having local efforts, and can they be incorporated into international law? How so? Well, possibly. Let's say, for example, there is certain stipulation with the Colombian peace process. You have to have land reform. The guerrillas have to lay down their arms. The United Nations has to come in. Can that be a practice? This would be a good practice of states, right? And then that becomes part of peace processes. So it becomes kind of a normative aspect. Ooh, that sounds good. Of peace processes in international law. That was kind of the point of that international law because I kind of threw it around.
You're talking about the lecture that was in the restaurant in Bogota?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I've given it so many times that
Yeah.
people watch it. I force them to watch myself. So remember positivism and humanitarian law. This is a tension in international law. Positivism kind of stresses the role of the what? Does anyone remember?
rights of the state.
Right, good. That's the actual tension, I think. And that's why I give the humanitarian, should states surrender debate. So that's a perennial debate. So if you look at the Venezuelans in Bogota, then, that's Bogota behind me, you see, okay, the rights of the states for them to do what they think is right for the immigrants. But do immigrants have legal rights beyond the state? And that's the same thing with the Sudan, right? Does the United Emirates have a certain right beyond, its own interests? United Arab Emirates, I should say. They might get upset. But that's why. But it lost on a technicality of the Sudan. So remember that. Don't forget that. I think we're going to invade Venezuela. That's what I think. But that's for a different day. That's where you get into just war. Just war. Remember the development. This all has to do with the development of the nation state, the role of Christianity and religion in politics, and the paradox, right, of the level of right. Because a just war, if Trump invades Venezuela, it's going to say this is a just war, right? Just like Just Cause, that was the Panamanian War. It will always say it's just. That's kind of the interesting thing about international law, I guess. Any law, self-defense. When is it self-defense and when is it aggression? That's a pretty interesting thing. And when is it preemptive, right? Is preemptive war or strikes like Israel on Ozark in Iraq years ago, and obviously the Iraq War, are these preemptive strikes or self-defense? That's a pretty interesting thing. So the legal right of just war, which is interesting, it's not a preemptive strike, right? It's not all these things that they talk about. So you kind of get that answer. Humanitarian positive law, I think there's two questions on that. That's kind of a tension that's continually continues throughout. NATO bombing, we bomb the Chinese embassy. But regardless, in international law, that privileged humanitarian law over the state, because the idea was they were committing genocide against the Bosnian Muslims. Now, we have a lot of Serbian students, like we have a lot of students from everywhere. We can debate that for a long time, whether it's good or bad. But there was obvious types of genocide going on. But then people say, well, you don't support, you don't stop other, ideas of genocide. And that's why I don't think I showed the Myanmar documentary, but an international lawyer who adheres to that legal positivism and municipal rules would not support going in for genocide. They support non-intervention. I want to make that kind of clear. What other things did we have? Natural law, same thing as humanitarian. They would support intervention, opposed to positivism. I just explained China's expansion in the South China Sea. That was definitely to highlight, everything from nautical mileage, the 9-dash rule, how countries like the Philippines, I'm switching it up. I used to ask Nicaragua, but this one's even more, this one's just as interesting, where the China Sea, where the Philippines kind of challenged China and its expansionism. Pretty cool. What other concepts did we ask? Anything else?
You kind of grouped these together, but you said Venezuela, 9/11, and change of laws.
Oh, yeah, that's using domestic law for the international system. So you're trying to use domestic and international law as a precedent. So what obviously President Trump could do is say, okay, we're doing these boats and we're building upon Bush and Obama because they were using drones in Africa. So that's kind of an interesting thing in order to domestic and international laws. Most people, I think almost all people in the debate who chose that debate said it was illegal. From probably an international standpoint, pretty illegal. They're not even betting these boats or anything. But from what they're trying to do is use those precedents in order to build upon domestic and then take it to international law. Pretty interesting. And we might invade. This is a good time to enroll. All right. What
Hope not.
else? What other
NATO bombing in Yugoslavia.
Yeah, that was what that privilege, according to the arguments, humanitarian law over state law, because the argument was the former Yugoslavia, as you saw that documentary, was committing acts of genocide in Bosnia Herzegovina. Now, whether that's debatable, that's up to you. Go ahead, Kim.
So the retortion and reprisal, like, when would that be used?
Right. I was waiting for that one because I got it right here. So the retortion is, let me look at the question to make sure I answer this correctly. Okay. So, I mean, not answer it correctly, but answer it in a way that's applicable to the question. So, in a lot of these questions, as it'll open tonight, you're an international lawyer, you're a positivist, you're a humanitarian, you're going to build upon domestic law, like the case of Venezuela, or positivism, which privileges the state, right? So if you're arguing a case, right, you want, retortion since the act is legal. Reprisal, right, is not considered legal in international law. Retortion is. So if you're arguing your case, right, that is the state itself, you want it to be related to retortion. Because retortion in international law is considered legal rights, not reprisal. Reprisal is considered, right, unlawful, whereas retortion is considered lawful. In fact, did I put the Oxford International Law in there for retortion? There's actually a good article in there. I'll have to send it out. Because it kind of differentiates retortion with reprisal. Since I stopped using the book was a little dated, but it was still pretty good. But it was really expensive, and people were like, I don't want to pay for that. Let me send that out. So that's how you want to argue your case based on that. What other questions? That's like all the questions in the exam, though. There's only, they don't make a number here, so that's why the points is 16. 16 questions. And a lot has to do with positivism and humanitarian, natural law, that tension applied to certain cases. Get that case on Sudan and United Arab Emirates, where there was a technicality. They did subscribe to that part of the treaty, which is kind of interesting. I find personally fascinating. If you don't do, that's up to you, because treaties matter. That should be a bigger part of the courses. These courses go by so fast, but that's one of the most interesting things is that treaties actually do matter, because by not subscribing to a treaty or a part of a treaty, then a state can't take you to international law. And I think that was one of the things when we did the debates, the ICC, people talked about the lack of fairness and the hypocrisy. That's true, because larger states aren't going to subscribe to that because they don't want their soldiers or people to be dragged to the International Criminal Court. What else do we got here? Nothing? That's it? Any questions about the final paper? Life, liberty, happiness?
When's your next trip to Colombia?
I don't know. My wife has to go, but I don't know if I will be going. I have a Costa Rican trip that we're doing for the summer. Anyone want to
Nice.
go? I'll send it out.
Costa
It's
Rica in February with
Oh, nice.
Starbucks. I won a trip.
You want a trip?
Nice.
Yeah, I did.
You mean
I did go to the coffee farm in Costa Rica. Starbucks' coffee farm.
can I ask if you work there and you're
I do, yeah.
online? Nice.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's actually really cool. So it was all free.
Yeah, I last year I went to Vegas with Starbucks. This year I won a trip to Costa Rica. They're paying for a degree for me. Like, I love
Nice.
Starbucks. And they
Yeah,
got good coffee. So
for free. We'll all go in. I'm kidding you. That's good. That's good. I'm glad you're one of the people that's taking advantage. You hear both good and bad about Starbucks, and that's a good end note to kind of end with. That's really nice. That's really great. Actually, I'm happy. You made me happy because education's so
I'm happy too.
expensive. It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll end with this. If the United States invades Venezuela, whether you hate Maduro or not, that's not a point. Will it be an easy job or what?
Yes.
You think he's gonna fall like that?
If we use the military, yes. And granted, I'm incredibly biased because I am a part of it, but I mean, we're good at what we do. We train for it, so I would say we're good at taking leaders out. We're not good at nation building.
That's what I was just gonna say.
We're good at
Okay, so
taking
he
leaders out,
falls
but we're not
easily,
good on the after
but the
effects.
post-conflict.
Yes.
Because I think the real there, if you saw the video, is Vladimir Padrino and the military structure. And someone said in Trump's administration he would step down if you kept the military structure, just like the Sandinistas did. But I don't know. I mean, this is a thing. I think maybe he could fall because he's not very well loved. But what about the military structure? That's what you have to kind of see. I would go in a deal and say, okay, you can keep the military structure if he goes and then we open up and have elections. But the opposition isn't super popular either. So like that's one of the things, it's one of those deals where there's not many popular choices. Of course, we like to say they're popular, but I don't think on the ground they're as popular as the United States government wants them to be. But we'll see. Why don't you go, Noah, and you can go free
I
trip.
will
See,
stick
just like
to
him, free trip instead of Costa Rica. You get a free trip.
the free trips for the army aren't as fun.
Exotic as.
No.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. I appreciate you people coming out and asking questions and participating. Anything, Chelsea, Julia, Simone?
No,
Nothing?
this is great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Corinne. Yeah, but you can't talk anymore because she's been in like 9 of my classes. So that's Julia. Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say everything was covered. Thank you.
Anything, Kim?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Noah going to Colombia?
We're going to the Dominican Republic for Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah, we're
That's where I
excited.
got married.
What's that?
That's where I got married.
No
I love
kidding.
it there. Yeah.
We're
Who
going
got
to
married
Santo
there?
Domingo.
Chelsea?
I did,
Ah, that's awesome. And it's cheaper than Puerto Rico. No offense to the Puerto Ricans
Yeah.
out there.
It's
I
a
went to
lot
Puerto
cheaper.
Rico. Well, I'm going to New Orleans in January. Anything good about that?
Nice.
All right, well, we'll let that flop. Nothing great about. I like the architecture and everything. My wife has never gone, so I got a conference there. So I said, we'll go and check it out. No, it's not as beautiful as those other places. Not as beautiful as Caracas. So yeah, thanks for coming out, and I'll put this up, and I'll just open up the midterm.
All right. Thank you.
Take care,
Thank
everyone, for
you.
coming out. Thank you.
Thank you.